All right, let's talk about Splatoon Raiders because this one did surprise me a bit. Not that it came out or necessarily snuck up on me. I knew it was releasing and I figured I'd be picking it up because I like the Splatoon concept that they came up with because it's genuinely unique for PvP. The idea of having to paint the arena and then at times splat some of the enemies, but the general idea being to take up the majority of the land with your ink to win. And so they have PvE now, and they kind of had it with things like Salmon Run, but they've built it out into Splatoon Raiders. And as I was seeing more and more of this, I was like, okay, that looks like it could be kind of fun, I guess. The game comes out, I pick it up, I start playing it, and I have played it way more than I thought it would. Like, this game really has its hooks in me in a way that I was not at all expecting, and so I wanted to actually talk a bit about it here today. So if you guys enjoyed the video, hit the like button, subscribe if you're new. The footage you're seeing, by the way, I went back and just recorded some gameplay for different raids. I've gotten to right at level 30 now, and that's where I said, you know what, I'm gonna make a video on this game now. But the footage you're seeing is 4K 60 FPS. So if you want to go ahead and set that on YouTube or put it on a big display or something, you should kind of get the general idea as to how the game will look, you know, if you decide to pick it up and you're actually playing it, because it is a game that does look pretty good. Now, the thing with Splatoon is when I go into these games, the thing that didn't surprise me, I was expecting it to have good performance for the most part, like 60 FPS. It's what Nintendo has been able to do with the previous Splatoon games. Splatoon 3 on the Switch 1, I think ran great, you know, for the hardware it was on and what it was expecting to do with some pretty chaotic PvP. But this takes it to a whole other level. So it being 4K, 60 FPS with HDR on the whole thing, it looks great in motion, but it's a very chaotic game. And I really didn't notice any obvious frame drops that would affect the game. And in fact, sometimes I was shocked that it wasn't tanking frame rate because it gets pretty crazy in terms of screen filling enemies, just the amount of stuff and projectiles and ink getting splattered all over the place. It's actually quite impressive to see in motion with everything still being, or at least holding up pretty well on the frame rate side. Now, in terms of the visuals, I do think the game itself looks very sharp and clean, which is, you know, honestly an ironic thing to say with how much ink and how messy you're making the entire arena. But the point is, it's very sharp looking. It doesn't get blurry or anything like that. And I think a lot of that comes down to the art style that they have with Splatoon, really lending to the idea of a simpler look in terms of the character models or even some of the environments, but because there is so much color on screen and it's very obviously artsy and different things they do there, it looks great. Okay, so visuals, frame rate, awesome, holds up well, and I think will actually impress a lot of people in general with what the Switch 2 is doing here. Especially if you have like a nice OLED screen or even just a very bright like display with HDR, it's going to look impressive there. Okay, so with that in mind, that's what I was expecting to see here. What I wasn't expecting was Nintendo's take on a looter shooter to be like super engaging, like very, very addictive. So I've played a lot of different looter shooters in my time, but they do tend to be overcomplicated at times. They tend to be drawn out in terms of spending an hour maybe for a raid, 40 minutes for a raid. That's pretty common, right? Especially towards the end game or anything else later in the game, where you spend a lot of time to try to roll for a weapon that you may not get, and then you have to do it all over again. So I guess here Nintendo said, you know what, the big enticing feature of the Switch 2, or even the Switch, is the fact that it's pick up and play. You get the Switch, it comes out of sleep mode immediately, you can jump right into a game that maybe you left in suspend mode, and this game, with the raids that they have, and the way that they have the level select in place, you can do a raid in 2 minutes. You know, some of them are very quick. Some of them take a little longer, 5 to 10 minutes, but the overall idea here is that you can jump in and out of these different raids or levels and feel like you are constantly being rewarded, which then plays into the carrot on a stick mentality to where no matter what you do in the game, you feel like you are making some kind of progress. Even if you don't complete the level, let's say you fail it, maybe you're not able to reach the certain amount of power eggs in a in the time limit, you'll still keep your experience or any of the currency that you collect, and then your character will get a bit stronger, and then you can attempt it again. If you fail, you get a bit stronger, and eventually you figure you'll break through, whether it's just you leveling up, you upgrading your gadgets, or getting new weapons. Now, with the progression in mind, as you're going through these different raids or treasure hunts, you will end up upgrading different parts of your base even. Like your base itself, and I like this about games that will at least attempt it, where you'll have visual upgrades. So you'll start with like a kind of a junky base, and really it's kind of like this oil rig looking thing in the middle of the ocean, and you do build it up. So you'll level up the whole base, and it will get bigger. Like it'll look different. Right? It'll look more complex. There's more happening there. It's larger. So I do like when games attempt that for your home base. I think it's an obvious indicator as to how much progress you're making here. But then on top of that, you'll gain stat points every time you level up, which you can put into the obvious ones: HP, attack, you have your gadget damage. One that I kind of neglected for a bit, which were gadget slots. And of course, I'm dumping everything into HP and then attack, but gadget slots end up being pretty important as you went along, because that will open up more more spots for modifiers on your gadget. So I have a boomerang that I really like, and as you throw it ahead of you, it'll splat or do ink everywhere. It'll sit for a minute, then come back. And depending on the modifiers you have, it will affect more of the horizontal area as it's going out towards these different salmons that are marching towards you. It may have an explosion effect when it gets back to you, or it may do more damage on the way back than when you throw it. But these are all really reliant on what kind of modifiers you place on each gadget, and leveling up just gives you more slots for stronger modifiers. And I will say that was one spot where I started to go, ooh, this could get a little too in the weeds, kind of start to feel a little too much like a looter shooter, where you're going into a skill tree almost for a skill tree, but it ended up pressing right up against the glass for that thought process, and it kept it simple enough. You gain different things or parts in the field as you're playing. So you get experience, you'll get treasure, and then you'll get these random parts. And those parts can be used to upgrade your gadgets in terms of these modifiers, because you kind of just craft or build them. You can also find these modifiers out in the world as you're picking things up and destroying boxes or enemies, and you can also get weapons. And the weapons do play into, as you'd expect, Splatoon. So you have a lot of familiar weapons like splat shots. You get the rollers, which are pretty cool. You have the paintbrush and the slosh bucket and I think like the sniper, the charge shot one, even the Gatling guns. So I've been going through a bunch of them, but I will say, because I'm still working towards endgame, I tend to just go with, for the most part, the strongest weapon I have, and whatever, class it falls into. You can upgrade the weapon slightly. I wouldn't have minded, because they go really in depth with the gadgets. I wouldn't have minded to see a little more depth with the weapons themselves. For the most part, if you get a level 20 weapon, you can upgrade it 5 levels beyond that with some of the currency or parts that you get. So you can go up to level 25. It's like 20 plus 5. You do have different rarities for each one, and they're indicated by color and then stars. So 2-star is green, a 3-star I think is like a blue. And I found like 2 legendary weapons so far. Those are 4-star and they're orange. But I already know I'm going to end up replacing them again as I go further and further and further. I think the level cap is 50, I believe, but then there's stuff you do, a lot of stuff in endgame. So right now it feels kind of like a race to endgame, so that I can then spend a lot of time trying to build out some of the legendary stuff at the end and make my character, I assume, very powerful to do some big endgame raids. Speaking of those raids, there are a few different ones you can go on. For the most part, they end up falling into certain categories, where you'll have certain ones where there's 3 different floors, the bottom floor being a boss, and you work through those floors by defeating enemies that are just marching towards you, basically, in different levels or different waves, and you'll collect power eggs that then allow Big Man to drill through the ground to the next level and the next one. You defeat a big boss, you get a bunch of treasure, and as you go through that whole thing, you end up with a ton of experience as well. You do have some that are more adventure style with no time limit, and you'll go through like these stages that do also have some platforming outside of just trying to blast everything in front of you at all times. And then there are some levels where you find them with these compasses, and they're skill point levels. So they'll run you through it in different ways of gadgets. Maybe there's a certain gadget that it completely focuses on, and you don't have the ability to shoot ink or anything, and it feels more like a puzzle setup than anything else. But you get to the end, and you'll get a skill point that you can spend on your character. There is online in this game, and I know people are curious about the single player side. Sure, you could play through the whole thing single player. Like I've dabbled in the online, but for the most part, I've just gone through this game by myself. But the multiplayer that I've experienced so far, there were two like ways I went about this. One, you can ask for help. So if you're playing a level and it's very difficult and you're getting overwhelmed and you don't necessarily want to just move on and come back later, you can press a button and call for help. That then opens up a room for that level specifically for you and will have it, I guess, just open to matchmaking, and people will join up and then play through it with you. And I did that for one level just to see, and it didn't throw anyone crazy like high level. So I think at the time I was maybe level 14 and it grabbed a 16 and maybe an 18 level. And I mean, it made it a lot easier because we just like ran through that with a bunch of us throwing ink everywhere. But it was nice to at least have that option to go, yeah, okay, sure, throw some people in here so I can blitz through this thing. The other one is you can then go out and look for people who need help. And it's pretty easy. Press a button, it'll deal with everything. You can still walk around your base as the little timer's counting down, and then it will find you a match, and you jump in, and that's it. You'll help them through it. You'll get some stuff as well to put towards your character, and it's that constant loop of quick progression. I haven't tried it yet, but I assume you can open up a room and then just go through completely with your friends. I've seen people post on social media that they are playing it like almost completely multiplayer and not really having any issues. And in fact, in the couple of the matches I did online, it ran fine. And actually, I was playing handheld mode through Wi-Fi even. So not even best case scenario where I have the Ethernet cable plugged into the dock. I was a little surprised that Nintendo didn't attempt game share on this thing, unless the system... So while I understand the visual stuff may be a little more simplistic, I think there is a heavy focus on trying to keep the frame rate locked at 60 frames at all times. And I do wonder if with game share, as I've had some issues myself personally in the past attempting it, it isn't always the best experience. I almost wonder if that additional stress on the system would cause it to falter at times. It's possible it gets added later on in an update, maybe when Nintendo works through this a bit more, as they have done that with some of their other games. But no, there is no game share. It is all just single, like one player per screen per Switch 2. So there's no split screen or anything. I will say I have found success playing this game with the old school mentality of pass the controller around. All right, so I have some kids that do like Splatoon. They saw me playing this, and they said, I want to turn. And I thought, you know what? These raids take a couple of minutes to play through. Why don't we just pass the controller around and do raids, and when you finish one, you pass the controller on. Kind of like what we used to do way back in the day when you had one PS2 controller or one GameCube controller, and that was it. It worked well. I mean, I think it was a good time limit, and each time, because the bar would fill up or you'd get stuff, the kids were like, oh, cool, things are happening. Okay, now your turn. And it actually worked pretty well. Everyone got plenty of time in, so if you have some younger gamers that may be interested in this, I actually think it works pretty well to just sit down and pass the controller around and have some fun. Also, shout out to Big Man, because typically you'll have one of these AI-controlled companions most of these games, and they don't do a lot. Big Man's actually pretty useful. You can jump off of Big Man so you get higher up in platforming. Sometimes he'll just annihilate a bunch of enemies for you, so not useless, and that's a pretty big plus for what you expect out of an AI companion. You do have some fun little things that happen at the base as well. There's like an arcade machine that you can unlock, which, I mean, they're very, very basic games. You can get some currency, like crystals, from playing it, and it's just kind of a fun little side distraction there. The other thing is a crane game, and you'll grab boxes out of the water, and I don't know what the deal is with the timing, but I am just so thrown off by it. I don't know. For some reason, it's very, very frequent where I will just completely miss the crate and destroy it. So, I mean, look, if you get a crate and you pick it up and you throw it on your platform there, you can get additional currency or even items from it, but I haven't really messed around with that one too much. One other thing I wouldn't mind seeing them have attempted here is something more with the ink itself. So you will get cosmetic rewards with your outfits for your character. So that's kind of cool. Like, depending on what you've done in the game, people may know because you have some really cool gear that you need to beat the game on the hardest, whatever, right? But they didn't really do much with the ink, and you'll just have your ink randomly chosen, right? Different colors, and I mean, that's how it's worked with Splatoon in the past for PvP, but I think it would have been cool if they even had like elemental properties for ink that you can upgrade. So maybe you have red ink, and it has a chance to have a burning effect if you hit enemies dead on with it. Maybe for purple, it could poison them, or maybe you can run faster in green ink that's on the ground. I feel like there's something there that they really didn't like go too far into. Even the idea of cosmetics or being able to choose your ink color would have been kind of cool. But that's just honestly at this point trying to think of other things that they could add on to what's already a pretty well built out but not over complex system. But those are some of my thoughts on Splatoon Raiders so far. Again, about level 30 now. I'm curious what happens towards endgame, and I still have a little ways to go here, but it's been a lot of fun so far. So I was not expecting to be this invested in Splatoon Raiders, but I'm glad I am, because it's also for the value. I mean, it's a $50 digital game, $60 physical. I did get the physical, so it's a $60 game to me. All in the cartridge, by the way. Just putting it out there. But still, for games that end up being $70 to even $100 for other looter shooters with the special editions and stuff, I think value-wise, this one's pretty good for the fun, but then also I think the amount of time I'll end up spending in this game. But let me know what you guys think about Splatoon Raiders down below in the comments. If you picked it up, what do you think about it so far? Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.